Hell, you're a Sunday regular at New Hope Baptist Church. You always sit in the third pew from the front, and everyone thinks you're a model Christian. What they don't know is that you've been secretly gambling away the health insurance money meant for your employees. This Sunday, while the pastor's preaching about greed, you're live betting on a football game on your phone. Your team fumbles. Your heart gives out in protest, and you collapse right there on the aisle. When you open your eyes again, the fire hits you instantly. It wraps around your skin from every direction. Every nerve in your body lights up at once, and you let out a scream you didn't even know you could make. The air reeks of burning sulfur. Darkness stretches far beyond the flames, and the heat just keeps building. You try to move, but your limbs feel like lead. You're in the lake of fire and sulfur the book of Revelation describes, and you know exactly why you're there. One look around tells you that you're far from alone down here. There are thousands of souls everywhere, weeping, wailing, and grinding their teeth so hard you can hear it over the roar of the flames. As for you, you're stuck. There are chains behind you and prison bars in front of you. There's no way out, and the fire never stops burning. The devil is here too, along with his crew of demons. The fire was originally prepared specifically for them, so you're crashing their party, but they don't mind. Tormenting souls like you is pretty much their entire job description now. So you can already imagine how the rest of your eternity is shaping up. This version of hell doesn't come with a release date. The souls condemned here stay for all of eternity, which is a really long time to sit and think about how you could have just stayed for the second sermon. Jahannam. You're a practicing Muslim, or at least that's the version of you everyone else sees. You post about Ramadan on social media, and you talk about your fasts at family gatherings. But the truth is, you've been a hypocrite about all of it for years. You've been beating your wife behind closed doors, lying to your business partners about money, and treating your staff like slaves. And right now, in the middle of the holy month, there's a chicken shawarma in your hand behind a locked office door for the third week running. Halfway through today's rap, a chunk takes a wrong turn down your throat. Your airway closes up, and that's how the cleaner finds you the next morning, face down in foil and regret. When you open your eyes again, you're standing before enormous gates surrounded by darkness and heat. This is Gehenna, Islam's version of hell, and you know exactly why you're here. Before you can even process what's happening, the keepers of Jahannam seize you and drag you face down through the gates. There's terrifying angels created solely to enforce punishment down here, and their leader is an angel named Malik. He's the guardian of Jahannam, and his presence alone fills you with dread. As you're pulled inside, the heat becomes unbearable. The fire here is said to be 70 times more intense than any fire on Earth, and walking into it feels like your body is being shoved against an open furnace. Before long, you start wishing for a cool breeze, anything to break the heat. Then, a blast of scorching, smoke-filled air slams into your face and fills your lungs, and you immediately regret the thought. In just a few moments, the flames begin consuming your skin, then your muscles and organs, until the pain reaches your heart. Just when it seems impossible to endure any more, your body is restored, so the punishment can start again. The cycle repeats endlessly. You scream and beg for another chance at life, promising to do everything differently, but nobody listens. After a while, you stop asking for a second chance and start begging for death instead. Small problem though. You're already dead. You're dressed in garments and footwear made of fire, while boiling water is poured over your head. Eventually, hunger sets in and you desperately want something to drink. But when food finally arrives, it only makes things worse. You're fed zagum, a tree that grows in Gehenna. Its fruit resembles the heads of devils, and the moment you eat it, it burns inside you like molten metal. To wash it down, you're forced to drink boiling water that rips through your insides without ever satisfying your thirst. But don't worry, you have something else to drink. It's this. Delicious hot drink made from discharge of wounds, mixed with blood and pus. Sorry, the mental image made me hurl. In Islam, hell has 7 levels. Each one of them is designated for different types of sinners. Because you lived as a hypocrite, you will be cast into the lowest and most brutal level, known as Al-Hawiyah. There, the fire will be darker, deeper, and more intense than anywhere else. You will be bound in chains, with your hands tied to your neck and your neck tied to your legs, leaving you completely restrained as the fire eats at your flesh. The good news is there's technically an exit plan for some people. See, Jahannam is where you get purified, and then you can go to Jannah, aka heaven. I actually covered what Jannah is supposed to be like in a separate video on the channel called The Disturbing Heaven Iceberg. In your case, though, there's no hope, because that option doesn't apply to hypocrites and stubborn disbelievers. Jigoku. Your controlling alcoholic father has spent years running your life, and now he's picked your husband too. Some 50-year-old friend of his. When he calls drunk to confirm it, something in you snaps. You drive over, shoot him at breakfast, then turn the gun on yourself. When you regain consciousness, you're standing before Emao, the lord of the underworld and judge of the dead in Japanese Buddhism. A record of your life is reviewed quickly, and because you murdered your own parent, you're sentenced to Jigoku. More specifically, Mugen Jigoku, the hell of uninterrupted suffering. It's the deepest and most severe hell in the entire system, reserved for the worst sins, including killing a parent. Once the verdict is passed, you're on your way. You're falling for what feels like thousands of years before you finally hit the bottom. And when you arrive, the suffering starts immediately. You're surrounded by intense heat and filled with extreme hunger and thirst. In a desperate attempt to find some kind of relief, you start tearing at your own flesh and drinking your own blood. But it doesn't change a thing, because the hunger and thirst never fade, and the pain never stops. You also get glimpses of what's happening to other souls, since different sins land in different parts of Jigoku. Your father, for example, ends up in Kyokan Jigoku, the screaming hell, which is where alcoholics like him get sent. The souls there are either thrown into boiling pots or locked inside iron chambers and roasted. And those who committed crimes while drunk are forced to drink molten iron. Just like everywhere else in Jigoku, they're brought back each time they die. So the fun never ends. Kyokan is only one stop on a much larger map. Jigoku stretches across 8 hot hells, 8 cold hells, and several smaller ones, each designed to punish different sins for specific periods of time before reincarnation. There's even a section called Tokatsu Jigoku, also known as the Reviving Hell, where regular murderers are forced to fight each other using iron claws. Every time one of them finally dies, a cold wind blows through, brings them back to life, and the whole thing starts again. Many religions seem to have built their hells with at least one exit hidden in the fine print. And for most souls, Jigoku is no different. You serve your time, work the karma off, and eventually get spat out into the next life. But for you, Mugen Jigoku offers almost no hope of release. Even if you somehow survive your time in Jigoku, bad karma from your previous action can roll straight into the next life. So maybe don't betray an entire country in this one, if you want better cards on the next run. Gehenna. You're a practicing Jewish husband of 20 years with 3 kids and a regular seat at the synagogue. You light candles, say the prayers, and keep up appearances. But for the past 2 years, every Friday afternoon has also included a hotel visit with a woman who isn't your wife. This week, you're hurrying down the back staircase trying to get home before sundown when your foot catches the carpet runner. You fall down 2 flights of stairs, crack your skull on the marble landing, and everything goes black. You open your eyes again, expecting a hospital, or maybe nothing at all. Instead, you're standing in a place filled with heat and a dull red glow. The air is thick and hard to breathe, and the ground beneath your feet feels scorched. This is Gehenna, the place of punishment in Jewish tradition. The fire is the first thing you really notice, because of course it is, since every religion seems to be ordering their hell from the same supplier. Flames surround you on all sides, burning constantly, but they don't destroy you. Instead, they cause this relentless pain that just never eases up. Just as you're trying to process the heat, you feel movement across your skin, and that's when the worms start crawling all over you, munching away continuously. These are the famous worms that do not die, described in Jewish texts, and they serve as another form of punishment that never stops. Time passes, although it's pretty much impossible to measure how much. Eventually, the flames start to fade, and for the first time, you feel a brief sense of relief. Shabbat has begun. Even down here, this weekly day of rest brings a pause in the punishment. The fire dies down, the torment lessens, and your soul is even allowed to leave and roam the earth. You have nothing to do and no one can see you, but hey, at least you're not in excruciating pain. The relief is short-lived. As Shabbat ends, the angel Duma appears. Known as the guardian of the souls of the dead, he gathers everyone and leads them back as the flames reignite. The suffering picks up exactly where it left off. Most souls only stay in Gehenna for up to 12 months as a kind of purification, after which they ascend to the world to come, a peaceful afterlife where the righteous are reunited with God. So when your first 12 months are up, you'll watch a bunch of souls who arrive with you walk right out of the door. But for serious offenders, especially adulterers like you, that exit door doesn't exist. The only break you'll ever get is during each Shabbat, after which it's right back to the fire and the worms for the rest of eternity. Naraka. You're a local political leader in rural India, famous for skimming money from anything labeled development. School funds, donor cash, disaster relief. Somehow it all ends up benefiting you too. To balance things out, you make regular temple visits, light incense, say your prayers, and move on. One afternoon, after pocketing fresh donor cash, you head out again. A sacred cow blocks the road. You lose your patience, tell the driver to go anyway, and the car flips straight into a ditch. That's where your balance sheet finally closes. When you come to, you're standing before Yama, the god of death and justice. His assistant, Chitragupta, quickly checks the record of your life and reads out everything you ever did. The verdict is pretty straightforward. You abused your power for personal gain, so you're being sent to Naraka, specifically to a level called Shukaramukha. When you arrive at Shukaramukha, the first thing you notice is that it's dark, cold, and miserable. The second thing you notice is that you have company. Yama's attendants are already waiting for you, and they waste no time getting started with your punishment. You're crushed and tormented as repayment for the suffering you caused other people, and the pain is unbearable. When you finally pass out from the agony, you wake up moments later, ready to do it all over again. Time loses all meaning here. There's only a repeating cycle of suffering that goes on until your sentence is complete. Since there's not much else to do here besides suffer eternal agony, you start watching how everyone else is getting on. Misery loves company, and so do you, apparently. Pretty soon you notice that every soul around you is enduring a punishment that was custom built to match the sins they committed. Naraka stretches across roughly 28 different realms, and you can see straight into a few of them from where you are. In one level, called Tamisra, souls are bound and mercilessly flogged by Yama's servants for the thieving they did in life. In another, the ones who killed or cruelly harmed animals are thrown into massive boiling pots and cooked. Every realm delivers a consequence that mirrors the life that led to it. So you basically see the whole karmic catalog play out around you. On the bright side, unlike some versions of hell, Naraka isn't eternal. After what feels like an endless stretch of suffering, your time in Shukaramukha will finally come to an end. The torment will stop. You'll be brought back before Yama, your sentence will have been served, and your soul will be prepped for rebirth. Depending on your remaining karma, you might come back as a human, or you might come back as an animal. After everything you've just been through, you'd probably be glad just to be free, even if it means coming back as a beetle. House of Lies. You're 54, and you've spent the last decade convincing your elderly father that your siblings were stealing from him, so he'd cut them out of the will and leave everything to you. The plan works. Your father dies, the estate comes through, and you fly off to celebrate. On the second night of the trip, you order the most expensive steak on the room service menu and eat it alone in your hotel suite. Halfway through, a piece gets stuck in your throat, and with the door bolted from the inside, nobody hears you choking for 6 straight minutes. By the time housekeeping gets in the next morning, you're dead. When you come to, the room looks the same, except now you're standing next to your own body. That's how you figured out you've died and your soul has parted ways with it. Your soul doesn't leave right away, though. So for the next 3 days, you linger, watching your wife and kids mourn, pray, and carry out the rituals meant to guide you on. It's awkward. They can't see you, you can't comfort them, and you're left hanging around like an uninvited guest at your own funeral. On the 4th day, your soul finally moves on and arrives at the Chinvat Bridge, the crossing point between life and whatever comes after. This is where your actions get judged. You meet 3 figures: Mithra, who represents truth, Rashnu, who oversees justice, and Sraosha, who embodies conscience. Together, they review your life, and it doesn't take them long to reach a verdict. You won't be crossing toward any kind of reward. As soon as that decision is made, the bridge beneath you begins to narrow, making every step harder than the last. As you keep struggling to maintain your balance, you notice an old, unpleasant-looking woman waiting up ahead. She's the physical embodiment of your own actions in life, and she's there to force you to acknowledge your evil deeds. Before long, you lose your footing, fall straight off the bridge, and land in the House of Lies. The space is dark and extremely narrow, leaving you with nowhere to move and nowhere to hide. Just when you think it can't get any worse, you come face to face with a monstrous creature called a Shrafstar, an evil being tied to decay and corruption, whose entire purpose is to attack and consume anything impure, which today happens to be you. As you're trying to process all of this, the weather around you starts shifting wildly. One moment it's freezing cold, the next it's blazing hot, with hail, rain, and snow coming and going without warning. There's no break from the torment, and in the end, you and all other souls trapped down here are devoured by the Shrafstars. If you'd actually lived a decent life, the bridge would have widened beneath your feet, and a beautiful figure formed from your good deeds would have guided you safely to the House of Song instead. But you didn't. So, Diyu. Imagine you're born in ancient China. You inherit your father's farm, build it up, and then start squeezing more out of everyone around you. You cheat on grain, adjust prices, keep shifting the boundary stone bit by bit. One night you go out to move it again, but this time the stone doesn't cooperate. Your back gives out, and it drops straight onto your chest. The villagers find you there the next morning. You find yourself in a dark underground realm. This is Diyu, the Chinese underworld, where souls are judged and punished before reincarnation. You're brought before Yama, the king of hell, who reviews the record of your life with his assistants in about the time it takes to skim a grocery list. Because you spent years exploiting the people around you, you're sentenced to one of the levels of Diyu. Yours involves boiling oil. You're thrown into a massive vat of it and left to fry. The pain rolls in waves and never gets a chance to dull, because every time your body breaks down, it's put back together so the whole nightmare can start over from the beginning. The moment you stop screaming long enough to look up, you realize you've got company. Off in one direction, a man is being cut clean in half over and over again. Although every time the blade finishes its work, his body restores itself, so it has something fresh to slice into. Beside him, a woman is dragging herself up to a tree covered head to root in knives, and every move she makes opens new cuts across her skin. Somewhere off to your right, a steady thudding catches your ear, and when you trace the sound, you spot a man being crushed inside a massive mortar and pestle, his body breaking apart and reassembling between each blow. A little further past him, another man is standing naked in a wind so cold it tears straight through him, peeling away skin that grows back just in time for the next gust. Further out still, you can make out figures losing their eyes to claws and beaks, others being mauled by animals you can't quite place. After taking it all in for a while, it occurs to you that the boiling oil might have actually been the merciful option. You suffer there for what feels like forever, even though it really isn't, and eventually, your sentence comes to an end. When it does, you're brought once again before Yama, and he declares that your debt has been paid. From there, you're led toward the Bridge of Oblivion, which is the final step before rebirth. On the bridge, you meet the Guardian of Forgetfulness, an old woman named Meng Po. She hands you a bowl of soup that's often called the Soup of Oblivion, and the moment you drink it, every memory of your past life starts to disappear. The pain you endured fades as well, and once everything is gone, you're guided gently toward the cycle of reincarnation. The full layout of Diyu is actually pretty elaborate, by the way. It's structured into 10 courts, each one ruled by a different deity who decides the fate of souls passing through. And it contains 18 levels in total, with each level designed for a specific type of sin. Tartarus. Imagine you're Sisyphus, a king in ancient Greece and the founder of Corinth. Your life's resume reads like a checklist of how to absolutely infuriate every single god on Mount Olympus. You betray Zeus by revealing his secrets, violate the sacred law of Senya by killing travelers who seek shelter in your palace, and even chain Thanatos to stop death itself. When order is finally restored, you manage to cheat the underworld once more. Eventually, though, your luck runs out, and you die of old age. The next time you open your eyes, you're falling. There's no ground beneath you, just darkness stretching out in every direction. And as you keep dropping, it slowly dawns on you where you're headed. You're on your way down to Tartarus, the deepest part of the underworld, reserved for those who seriously offended the gods. The ancient poets like to claim that if you dropped an anvil from the heavens, it would take 9 days to reach the earth, and another 9 days to fall from the earth into Tartarus. As you continue to descend, it becomes pretty clear they weren't exaggerating. When the fall finally ends, you land in a vast, silent abyss. Your punishment starts almost immediately. You're forced to push a massive stone up a steep hill. And at first, it actually feels like a straightforward task. You lean into the weight and slowly push it upward, step by step. But just as you reach the summit, the stone slips out of your grasp and rolls all the way back down. There's no time to process what happened, because you feel weirdly compelled to follow it down and start again. After a few attempts, it dawns on you that the task is designed to end with the same outcome every single time, no matter how hard you try. As you continue this endless routine, you notice that you're not alone down here. Nearby stands Tantalus, a guy who killed his own son and served him to the gods. Now he's stuck standing in water beneath a tree covered in fruit. Every time he reaches for the fruit, it moves away. And every time he tries to drink, the water slips out of reach. So he just stands there, starving and thirsty. Nearby are the Danaides, the daughters of Danaus, who murdered their husbands on their wedding night. They spend all their time carrying water in jugs, trying to fill a bath full of holes. Of course, their efforts never amount to anything. Time stops meaning much in Tartarus after a while. There are no breaks and no progress, just the same thing over and over. Each time the stone rolls back down the hill, you sigh, walk back down after it, put your hands against it again, and start pushing all over again. The Greek gods apparently decided that the worst thing they could do to a person was hand them a task they could never finish. Which honestly tracks for a group whose entire personality was holding grudges for centuries. Náströnd, you're one of the king's messengers during the Viking Age, and you've been sent to deliver an important message across 12 villages. Along the way, you meet a woman who sweeps you off your feet, and despite being married, you give in to temptation and spend 2 days with her, neglecting both your vows and your duty. On your journey home, thieves ambush you, stab you, steal your horse, and leave you to bleed to death. When you open your eyes again, you're standing in a place so dim you can barely make out your own hands. The air is cold and stale, and it only takes a few seconds before it clicks. You're in Náströnd, also known as the Corpse Shore. No part of you is surprised, since this is exactly where Norse tradition sends murderers, adulterers, and oathbreakers to ride out eternity. And you've earned your spot fair and square. You start walking just to do something with yourself. And as you do, the walls catch your attention. They look ordinary at first glance, but the longer you stare, the more you realize they're moving. You keep looking until you lock eyes with two narrow, glossy, unblinking eyes in the dark. That's when you realize the walls aren't walls at all. They're a mass of snakes tangled together and sliding over one another. Venom constantly drips from their mouths, runs along the walls, and pours from the ceiling. When you finally look down to see where it's all going, you realize you're not standing on a floor. You've been wading through a river of poison the whole time. Before you can fully take that in, something behind you starts to move. Slowly at first, but soon it gets close enough that you can hear it breathing. When you turn around, you come face to face with Nidug himself, the great serpent dragon who feeds on the corpses of the dead and drinks their blood. Since this is the punishment specifically reserved for those who broke their sacred vows, you can already do the math on who he's here for. When Nidug finally reaches you, he doesn't kill you. He takes his time, working through you, piece by piece, while you stay conscious for most of it. And the moment he finishes, your body is put back together exactly as it was, and the whole thing starts over from the beginning. There's no escape from this place. Irkalla, you're a housewife in ancient Mesopotamia, and you run on gossip the way most people run on food and water. You know everyone's business, and your rooftop is your favorite perch because it gives you a clear view into half the courtyards in the neighborhood. One afternoon, you lean in a little too far trying to catch a conversation between your neighbor and her sister. The part of the roof you're leaning on gives way, and you go straight over the edge. Your funeral ends up being the biggest event in town. When you open your eyes again, you were standing in front of an enormous gate, and there are 6 more behind it, stretching off into the distance. You already know you're in Irkalla, the ancient Mesopotamian underworld, because where else is there to go? You've known since you were a child that every soul ends up here eventually, no matter how they lived. What surprises you is that it doesn't look anything like the brimstone and roaring fire you'd been bracing for. To get to the main hall, you have to pass through all 7 gates one by one. At each one, a guardian stops you and takes something from you before letting you through. The first one takes your jewelry. The next takes the shawl off your shoulders. By the time you reach the final gate, every layer of clothing and every small piece of who you used to be is gone, and you've been reduced to a thin, shadowy version of yourself, no different from any of the other souls drifting around you. Once you complete the passage, you're brought before Ereshkigal, the queen of Irkalla, so she can formally pronounce you dead. The goddess, Geshtinana, writes your name down in the record, and from that moment on, you're basically left to your own devices. Nobody's going to torture you, but life down here is bleak and uneventful. When hunger eventually sets in, you discover that the only food available is dry dust. Without water to wash it down, it gives you nothing. Relief only comes when your living family remembers you. When they visit your grave and pour libations through a clay pipe, you get a brief wave of refreshment, just enough to cut through the constant dust in your throat. Lucky for you, you had 10 children in life, and even though you weren't exactly a warm or affectionate mother, none of them completely forgot you. So those small offerings still reach you from time to time. It's not like that for everyone else. The souls drifting nearby who never had children, or whose children died before them, are in a much worse state. Nobody visits their graves, so nothing gets offered, and they don't even get those brief moments of relief. You can spot them easily, since their hunger and thirst never ease at all. And after a while, you start to understand why people back home were so focused on having large families. As time goes by, you start to notice that you and the other dead souls aren't the only things down here. Every now and then, a figure moves through the shadows at the edge of your vision. And although they don't seem interested in you, they don't seem entirely human either. They are the deities and demons who share the realm with the dead, and you'll catch glimpses of them for as long as you're here, which is forever. The worst part, though, the part that really gets to you, is that absolutely nothing happens down here. Nobody's fighting with their husband, nobody's hiding a pregnancy, nobody's running off with anyone. And even if they were, you've got no one willing to hear about it. World of Darkness. You're a 47-year-old man, and the Mandaean priests in your community have been telling you for years that you need a proper baptism in flowing river water if you want any protection after death. You always agree, then put it off. Life goes on, and so does the lying, cheating, and acting like it won't matter later. This morning, you're singing in the shower when you slip, hit your head on the floor, and die as the water keeps running over you. When you open your eyes again, you're still in the bathroom, standing over your own body. Your soul stays there for 3 days, watching your family find you, break down, and begin the rituals meant to prepare you for what comes next. If you'd lived a righteous life, this part would feel peaceful. Since you didn't, dark figures begin appearing around the room long before the 3 days are over. For now, they just watch. On the 4th day, your soul finally moves on and begins its journey toward judgment. It isn't a straight walk to a courtroom, though. Along the way are checkpoints called matarta, where you're stopped and questioned about everything you did in life. To pass through safely, your soul needs 2 things: sacred knowledge and the spiritual protection that comes from a proper baptism. You showed up with neither, which means you can't actually clear a single checkpoint. While you're stuck at the first matarta with no way through, the dark figures from your bathroom catch up with you on the path. With nothing protecting your soul, there's nothing they can't do. So they grab you, drag you off the road entirely, and pull you down into their own realm instead of letting you continue toward judgment. When the dragging finally stops, you realize you're now in the world of darkness, a place so vast and shadowy that you can't tell where the floor ends. One side is layered in fire that climbs into the air without burning anything in particular, and the other is buried under thick black smoke rolling in from somewhere you can't see. As you move through it, you come across the Sea of Suf, a black, boiling body of water that hisses and steams as you walk past it. You're still trying to take it all in when something massive shifts in the distance. It moves slowly toward you, and when it gets close enough, you realize it's a serpent-like dragon, large enough to blot out whatever passes for the sky down here. This is the king of darkness, and he calls the shots down here. Standing beside him is Ruha, the queen of darkness. Neither of them speaks to you or even moves closer. That's because they don't deal with souls personally. That job belongs to the swarm of demons standing behind them. The demons close in on you from every side and drag you straight into a pit of fire. The heat tears through your skin before they yank you back out and throw you into cold so brutal your body goes stiff almost instantly. Then black water crashes over your head and burns down your throat like poison. Before you can recover from one punishment, another starts. Fire, freezing, cold, drowning, then right back again with no pause in between. There is technically a way out. A redeemer figure called Mandaeism can guide souls through the world of darkness and toward the world of light. The problem is you have no idea how to reach him. So for now, all you can really do is suffer through the cycle.